I want to take you back to the winter of 2021. I'm sorry. It was a dark time. I was studying for a master's in ancient Greek, which is something that's going to make you question your life choices at the best of times. But these were the worst of times. Suddenly that master's had become sitting in my bedroom and listening to Zoom lectures and staring into the void. And I really started to question things. Don't get me wrong, I'd wrestled with the absurdity of academia before, but before I'd always had a solution. This. I would perform. By day I was a scholar, by night I was a theater kid. I would find myself an audience, and whenever the studies got too esoteric, then I would connect with a real-life audience, rediscover the wild heart of life. But this was the pandemic. There was no wild heart of life. But then the new semester came around, and the first task of the new semester was to choose some extract of Homer, the Iliad or the Odyssey, to translate it, to memorize it, and then to film yourself performing it. So I set about selecting my extract. I didn't think too hard about it. I just chose my favorite bit. And it was my favorite bit because it contained my favorite line, one line that I can remember connecting with even the first time I read Homer back when I was just an 18-year-old freshman. One line, I remember writing it down in my journal and then taking it to show my friends in the pub after school when we were comparing notes about what we'd learned. One line, it was this: "Many are the birds that warm their wings in the light of the sun. They fly this way and that. But not all of them are omens. Not all of them are omens. They're not all meaningful." I think I liked that line as a teenager because back then, I was a teenager, I thought nothing was meaningful, but for whatever reason, it stuck with me, and now when I had to choose my scene, it was that one. The scene starts at pink dawn. Telemachus, that's Odysseus' son, he rises from his bed and he calls together an assembly of all the Ithacans. And me too, when I recited it, I called together an assembly. It was the pandemic, so I called my roommates out of their bedrooms, and I got them to sit on the sofa and film me. And then Telemachus, he brings his problem before the assembly. He says, "It was bad enough when my father was gone, dead, or missing in some foreign land, but now things are even worse. My halls are filled with suitors, young men who are competing for my mother's hand, and none of them will do the right thing and go to her father's house and ask for her hand. That's the custom. Instead, they sit in my halls. They drink my glistening wine. They slaughter my cattle. And this has to end." That's what he says. And then there's kind of an awkward silence. No one wants to speak. And in my living room, too, there's a kind of awkward silence. My roommates have no idea what they're looking at. They don't know about Homer. They don't care about Homer. Also, it's the pandemic, so they're both deeply, chronically stoned. But they're watching me. And then Antinous gets up. He's one of the suitors. And he wants to disagree with Telemachus. He says, "Hey, it's a bit rich coming from you to try and blame this on us. We all know it's your mother's fault. You know what she did. She told us that she would marry again as soon as she had finished one last marital task for Odysseus. She wanted to weave a funeral shroud for his father so that when death came to lay him low, he would not have to lie naked. And we watched and we waited as every day she set up her loom and she weaved in her halls, and little did we know, every night she would come and unpick the work she had done. For 4 years she fooled us like this, until in the 5th we found out, and we caught her at her unpicking, and we made her finish the shroud. But then, even then she didn't marry someone. So you want our answer? Our answer is this: throw your mother out of your home. That way she'll be forced to marry someone, and then you'll have your home back for yourself. That's what Antinous said. But Telemachus, he's ready with his reply, and he's really getting into it now. And to be honest, I'm really getting into it now too. I say, I can't just throw my mother out of my house. If I did that, she would call down the fury of the gods. The Furies themselves, they would come and they would pursue me to my dying day. So no, I will not speak these words. And if you really think that this is the best solution, to simply wait in my home and eat all of my possessions until I have nothing left, then fine, stay. But know this, every night I pray to Father Zeus. I pray that any one of you who will not pay for what they take with money should pay with their life. And once he had spoken, Zeus released 2 eagles. They flew from the top of a mountain right over the top of the assembly. And then they descended. And as they plunged, they tore at one another, at their cheeks, at their necks, with their sharpened talons and their beaks, until right at the last minute before hitting the ground, they flew off to the right, over the roofs and over the sea. And every man in that assembly stared at the sky and wondered what this sign meant, but it was Halitherses who got up. He who was the greatest prophet of his generation, and his words were this: doom! This means doom. Odysseus is close. He's coming back, and he brings your death, your doom with him, if you do not change your ways now. If the suitors do not leave the halls of Odysseus, then it will spell their doom. That's what Halitherses said. But there was another suitor there in the assembly, Eurymachus it was. And he got up again to disagree. Go away, old man. Why don't you go home and prophesy to your own children in case something bad should happen to them? Odysseus, he's dead. He's not coming home. We have nothing to fear from him. You want someone to read these signs? Here's a prophecy for you. Many are the birds that warm their wings in the light of the sun. They fly this way and that. But not all of them are omens. There it was, that line again. And it hit just like the first time. In fact, better than the first time, because now these words were alive as they were supposed to be, oral poetry. They had wings. They'd come to life, and I'd come to life, and even my roommates, kind of, behind their bleary eyes, there were some signs of life. And you'd think I would have noticed then. You'd think I would have seen that this was the beginning of something. You'd think I would have seen that. You'd think I would have laughed at the irony of myself at 18, writing down and finding meaning in this line because I thought it encapsulated the fact that everything was meaningless. You'd think I'd have seen that the feeling I had then and the feeling I was having now performing these words, just like the birds, they were omens. They were signs that years later, voila, I would still be reading those texts and still performing them. But it was the winter of 2021. They were dark times. It was about 3:00 in the afternoon, in fact, so I just sent that film we'd made to my professor, and I went to the fridge, and I got myself a beer, and I went back to my room and continued staring at the sky. Thank you.